Yo, 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 what's going on? We are back with another episode of the Unsilent Church podcast. And we got a special guest in the building today. Legendary, epic. What other words can we say to like describe our special guest today? I mean,
Legacy.
I love what you did there. We got Brian Dye in the building. What's going on, Brian?
What's good? What's good? I don't know about the legendary title, but it's good to be here with you guys.
Hey, man, it's good to have you here in the RCC studios, brother. You've been doing a lot of stuff over the last couple of decades. First off, we can go a lot of different directions with this conversation, but one of the things that we want to talk about is definitely just discipleship, what that looks like, especially in the city, amongst youth, young adults, etc. But before we get into all that, man, just tell the people a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah. So my story kind of ties into what I do in my heart for discipleship. And so I grew up in the city of Chicago, the west side, and grew up in a community. So I had my father who was living with us, but he was an alcoholic, very distant emotionally. And my mother has mental illness even to this day. And so my grandmother was really the rock of our family. She always lived close by. And so her place was the place to escape to. And she knew that her grandkids needed mentors and support and in holistic ways. So she brought us to church and my mom when she was doing well. So we grew up in the church, grew up with that foundation, but really it was, 12 years old. I had a guy at the church who became a father figure to me. And we would play catch together, never did that with my dad. And he would share scriptures just kind of as we're, hanging out. Invite me over to the house for dinner with him and his wife. First time I sat down at a dinner table. I always say I heard Ephesians 5 preached, husband and wife relationship. This was the first time I saw it preached. I grew up in the church. I knew the gospel, but I always saw God through the lens of my earthly father. And so through this mentor, I was able to see God as a father who cares, who wants intimacy. And 2 years later, he moves to out of state, to Atlanta. Another mentor in my life. My grandmother also brought me to this community center. I had a mentor who started to walk with me and taught me how to teach the Bible, how to study the Bible, how to share the gospel.
What age is this?
So I'm 14 at this time, freshman in high school.
Okay.
So this is, early 90s.
So 12, you meet the first mentor. 14, you meet the second one.
Second mentor. And so the first one was a father figure. This guy became like my sensei, type. And so me and my two best friends were starting to grow in our relationship with Christ at the same time. And he gives us a list of kids in the neighborhood and says, go visit these kids. This is before, cell phones and social media and so forth. So we're knocking on doors like, hey, is, so-so here. We're starting up a Bible study group. We're starting up this mentorship program. You want to be a part, right? And so we created these T-shirts with our name. We came up with a group name, Homies for Christ. Remember, in living color, right?
Homies for Christ.
And we thought we're doing big, right? We're 14 years old, did these T-shirts, and we just started hanging out, mentoring, becoming spiritual advisors, so
At
forth.
14?
At 14. So, we would all go to the three of us would go to high school and then come home, come back to the neighborhood right after school and just mentor. We had keys to the gym, we had keys to vans, and the stuff that we had no business, doing at that time.
In my mind, I'm like, at 14?
At 14, yeah. And so got my teeth, ingrained in it at an early age. And, I think, at that age, you believe those people that you respect, right? If they tell you could do something, you believe it, And it's the power of mentorship, right? It's the power of influence of relationship. And so as we got older, we started looking around and like, why is not everybody else doing this? You know, because
Huh.
you kind of think, well, you come to Christ, you grow in Christ, you share Christ with others.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been kind of my burden in life is, man, how do we encourage everyday Christians, you
Yeah.
know, whether they're in ministry vocationally or whether they're a teacher or whether they're a
Mhm.
janitor, open up a coffee shop, whatever the case might be,
That's good.
you know, to be growing disciples who make disciples.
Amen. That's good. Fast forward a little bit, man. I love to hear just, James, he mentioned the idea of legacy, right?
Mhm.
And obviously the legacy conference and, and I think a lot of our audience may know what that is, but for those that may not, just explain a little bit that
Yeah.
heartbeat behind why starting that.
Yeah.
I got some stories about legacy conference
Uh-oh.
that I'll share later
Uh-oh.
on. But yeah, tell us a little bit like
Yeah.
when was the inception of all that?
Yeah. So 2005, invited a couple guys who were pouring into me at that time. Soup Campbell, who's a legend
Soup.
in Memphis and
Shout out to Soup.
all over the world.
Mm.
And his spiritual brother, Dan Ball, who's a pastor south of Houston, Texas. Met both of them while we were taking teenagers to camp in Missouri called Kids Across America.
Hey.
Okay. Okay.
I would say I was doing ministry at the time. I was mentoring. I was investing in the next generation.
Sure.
So what's 12 father figure, 14 sensei, legacy is
So I would have been around 30 years old
Okay.
now at this time.
Got it.
But maybe 5 or 6 years before that, in my mid 20s, took students to Kids Across America camp. Sat down, heard Dan Ball and Soup Campbell teach, and what they really hit on is, a lot of times the ministry is about the person in front of us, but that's short sighted.
Mm.
The ministry always needs to be the generations behind them, and it's not just good enough to teach someone how to read the Bible for themselves or how to grow in holiness. That's great, but that's not enough. It's how
That's
do you
good.
pass this on to others?
Yeah.
like
right?
posterity almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you keep the legacy going
Yeah.
on for generations? So it brought Dan and Soup in to do a 1-day training with some youth workers around the city. I was doing a youth workers network, and so we had about 50, 60 youth workers come to this, and they taught, and Lecrae was part of that as well. This is like days Lecrae just had his Real Talk album.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't really well known at the time, but he moved to Memphis to be discipled
Yep.
by Soup.
Yep.
So
okay.
me and Lecrae are both like being discipled by the same guy around the same time. And at the end of this training, the 1-day training, the youth workers, their eyes were just like blown away because, they're saying, man, we do Bible studies, we do the cool events, we do the junior choir and all that kind of stuff, right? But we need to develop leaders. We
That's
need to
good.
develop disciples who will make disciples. And as Lecrae said, the cycles, right?
Yeah.
So that started. We started brainstorming with these youth workers a conference that would be more targeted for young adults, and how do we unleash them? Because young adults in our churches, for the most part, do
Sure.
a good job when people like 40 and up, right? I would say, and
That's what our
kids, little
churches do a
kids.
good job with.
I think mostly American churches, right? We have good children's programs. Youth, we kind of start to lose them. Young adults, we kind of lose them, right? But then when they turn 40, they kind of come back to
Start
the
having
church, start having families, and
Need
want
somewhere
their
to take
kids,
their
Okay.
kids.
Yeah.
And then that's a cycle.
And so you have this gap really from teenagers to
No, that's
about
true.
40,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's a missing gap, but that's when people have the most energy. It's when
Yep.
people have the most time, availability, right?
It's often where most of the formation happens.
Formation, right? I'm a firm believer that Jesus' disciples, other than Simon, were teenagers, and the reason why I say that is because when the religious leaders came to Jesus, why don't your disciples pay the temple tax? Jesus tells Peter to go get a fish, get a coin for it, and pay the temple tax for it. Jesus says, for me and for you, Peter, right? Well, the temple tax was supposed to be paid for any male 18 years and older. So why doesn't Andrew have to pay the temple tax? Why doesn't Matthew have to pay the temple tax?
And on
The
and
only answer is they weren't old enough to have to pay the temple tax yet.
Wow.
Which makes sense because when you look at the disciples, you're like, man, these guys are erratic. They're spontaneous. You
They're just
know,
saying
it's like,
stuff.
saying stuff, right? Pulling knives out and cutting people's ears off, right? It's like, you know,
I mean, well, Peter was a little, he's a little over the top, but
yeah,
He might have been from the west side of Chicago.
he might have been, you know?
he was that type. Stay strapped,
And but what Jesus, you know, so we understand, you know, in the last couple decades, more brain science has come out, right, and more understanding of brain development, and we understand now that our brain's not fully developed until 25, 20, maybe even 30 years old,
Yep.
and the part of our brain that's slowest to develop is our rational part of our brain, is our prefrontal cortex, right?
That's right. That's right.
And that's why car insurance is more expensive for teenagers and young 20s, right? And it's just, we just aren't the most rational thinkers when we're that age,
Yeah.
right? We don't think about consequences as well. We could look at the negatives of that, but there's immense positive in that as well, you know? When are Christians more likely to say, I'm going to go to the mission field? When they're college age, young 20s,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
When are they most likely to say, I'm going to pastor, right? Because someone who has a full brain is not thinking, yeah, I want to pastor, right? Because that's, you know, it's like,
I mean, and they've
it's,
done-
it's messy,
And
right?
they've done a lot.
Right.
And there's a lot of experience, and they've sometimes are jaded because there's probably already been some hurt that's happened
Yeah.
over the years.
Yeah.
Whereas 19, 20, it's like
Yeah.
it's hype, it's energy, it's
Yeah.
passion. Again, in a lot of cases, like often starting a business and hey, I'm going to move out of my house and hey, I'm going to try something new
Yeah.
and hey, I'm going to take this risk
So when people are young,
when they're young.
Yeah.
yeah. You know, again, before people start have families and kids, right?
Yeah,
Now you
yeah.
got to think, okay, what about my kids? What about my wife or husband? What about my house? And right, all these questions come up, and it's not necessarily a negative thing, right? There's responsibilities with that, but again, how do we target that young teenager and young adult, right, in the prime of their development
Yeah.
and the prime of their availability to
Yeah.
do ministry?
That's good. That's good. It reminds me of was it in Timothy where it talks about Paul tells Timothy, no, when he
Trust a faithful man.
entrust the faithful man.
Yeah.
When you mention that, like when you mention the idea of legacy
Yeah.
and passing it to multiple generations,
Will be qualified to teach
They're-
others
they're-
also.
yeah. So in 2007, you started the Legacy Conference with the
Correct.
heartbeat behind developing and discipling leaders to the next generation. Is that kind of
Yeah. So people, and by developing leaders, a lot of times we hear that word and we think, okay, the people who are already serving somewhere, right?
got you?
For us, it's the untapped potential, right? It's helping people see the vision of themselves as a leader. you know?
That's an unlock, and that's what I was going to ask when you said developing leaders. Is like, how do you define? And you sort of said it, untapped potential, but then you just said something else about like helping them see themselves, like helping them see something that they don't often see themselves. And in my experience, that's not just like youth and young adults. Like I have conversations with people all the time that I'm like, you don't realize that you're in a 1% of people and the capacity that you have. Or I remember a buddy of mine who was an artist who went to seminary with me, and he graduated from UNT, which had a very sort of high ranked art program. And he was highly ranked in that art program, you know. And when he was trying to decide like what he wanted to do, and granted, the decision he made is his decision. Obviously, we were in seminary together, but the thing that I kept saying to him was like, bro, you don't understand like the gift that you actually do have from God. And it's one of those things when you think about people like Oholiab and Bezalel, which most people aren't familiar with, you know, and the way that the Bible describes them of being filled with the Spirit of God for all things craft. And I go, that too, like it doesn't, I mean, you said it earlier when you were talking about like it doesn't matter if you're a teacher or a janitor or an artist or a business person or, go on and on and
Yeah.
on. There are ways that the Spirit of God has filled you to do something to like showcase here on earth what things are like what things in heaven might be like.
Yeah.
And so when you say that developing leaders, I go and talk more about how you used to like
Yeah.
help kids see themselves.
Yeah. So even as you're talking, I'm thinking of the demoniac. Jesus crosses the sea, and there's this man who's living amongst the tombs,
Mhm.
cutting himself, right? And I mean, we could spend a lot of time there just talking about what drove him to that place,
Mhm.
right? And the trauma,
Psychology,
and so
yeah.
forth of it. But Jesus delivers him, casts the demons out, right? There's a legion of demons in him,
Mhm.
and he wants to go with Jesus, and Jesus says, "No,
Jesus says no.
you stay and tell everybody what happened to you." And when Jesus comes back to the Decapolis, to this Gentile area across the sea, there's 4,000 people who want to hear him teach. You know, the second feeding of the loaves and fish, right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, how do they know who this Jesus was? This healed, delivered person,
Yeah.
right? Went and told everybody. You know, he had no formal seminary training. He had no vocational ministry job. You know,
That's good.
who knows how long he'd been living amongst the tombs in isolation and oppression. People knew who he was, but in the very negative light, right? So when they saw his life change,
That's right.
who better to be a missionary to them than him?
Mm.
You know, he was able to open up doors that Jesus couldn't even open up to them, right?
Yeah.
When Jesus healed him, right, and sent the demons into the pigs, they were like, "Yo, you gotta go.
You got to get out.
You gotta get out of here," you know.
You gotta get up out of
but
here.
the demoniac man, right, the healed man, was able to minister because people again knew his story. They grew up with him. They've seen his life.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good.
And so we often in the church, right, we think, well, ministry is the pastor's job, right? They're the ones who are trained. They're the ones who are good orators and could clearly explain the gospel.
That
and
is a troubling
you know,
misconception. Yeah.
And so we might invite someone to come to church to hear the pastor, right?
Mhm.
And you know,
Mhm.
the job of the pastoral staff, right, is to equip the body of believers for the work of
Right.
ministry.
Ephesians
right?
4.
Precisely. You just say that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
The job of the leadership, right, is to equip the saints for the work of ministry.
For the work of
Ephesians 4.
Everybody else.
Yes. That's good.
And because my neighbors see me every day. They don't see my pastor every day,
Facts.
right?
That's right.
But they see me. People at my work, they see me. They don't see my pastor.
That's
right?
good. That's good, man. That's good. So legacy,
Did I ever answer that question?
kind
Of
of
the conference?
kind of a little bit. You kind of, you
Okay.
you was teaching the Bible, Doc, and so we was just listening. I was like, oh man, he going in. Like let him continue to keep doing what he's doing.
Let him cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook. Let him cook. So the conference starts and all that. Leaders are being developed, etc. Massive explosion, expansion. Maybe I should say expansion.
Same difference.
This is when some of the big speakers were coming out. You have the concerts as well, but the real nucleus of it was discipleship. Tell us how that spilled out into, obviously churches in Chicago and things of that nature, but also stuff happened like COVID happened and this, that, and the fourth. And now Legacy is kind of a little bit in a regional type of stage and model. So talk a little bit about that. I think that's important because this discipleship, it did expand in a mighty way.
Yeah. So when we started the conference in 2007, we just thought it's for people in Chicago, right? And then people started coming from Grand Rapids and Detroit and Houston and LA and Phoenix, right? And that was, the downside of that is then people were like, yo, we need discipleship, we need community. So people were like moving to Chicago and like, yo, that's cool and all, but you need to stay in your context, right? There's God is at work in your community, in your city, right? And so even before the pandemic, we started adding regional conferences. So we were adding one new one a year. So we did 3 in LA, we did 2 in Houston, we did 1 in Atlanta, and then in 2020 we were going to add New York City. So we had about 2,000 people in the Chicago conference, and then 400 or 500 at each of these regional conferences.
That's big.
It was encouraging.
Yeah.
Because with this one, they're being equipped, but also they're being networked, right? I mean, whether it's Christian hip hop artists who were connected at the Legacy Conference, whether
Same
it was
team.
ministers, church plants, coming out of it, so forth. So it was a lot of encouragement.
It's great.
And then the pandemic happened, right? Which just like knocks over the tower, right?
Yeah.
And we had to make the immediate pivot into kind of the online conference, which I never want to do an online conference again. And it's just
It's not the same.
What people always said about the Legacy Conference is it felt like a family reunion.
Yeah.
You're connected with people, and there's something about that relationship, right? And connection, human connection. So we just decided to put the conferences on hold until post pandemic, and which gave us a good opportunity to start reimagining. Because everything has a shelf life. Every church has a shelf life. Every conference has a shelf life. The goal of any conference is to spark something, right? That continues on. And so we thought, maybe even the conference is over. Maybe it's just done. And so I started sitting down with guys I've been walking life with and just asking, what's an area of brokenness that troubles you about the world? And then what's the solution to it? And so out of that, we created a social emotional learning program that goes into elementary schools called Thriving Minds. We help students deal with their emotions in healthy ways. And then we train churches do mentorship programs. And so we train the church how to think holistically in discipleship. It's not just Bible, but it's that, do they know how to read? Are they getting fed? Is there any career development going on, right? What are we doing about social emotional stuff, right? Therapy, whatever the case might be.
Yeah,
that's good.
And then we started a program over the summer called Hood Heroes, and we employed 200 students last summer to become the heroes of their neighborhood.
What do they do? What do you mean heroes of their neighborhood?
Yeah, so all the students on Saturdays, we're in 7 neighborhoods right now. Chicago has 77 neighborhoods. So these are more the disinvested communities of Chicago. We hire students as young as 11 through 19. And on Saturdays, they meet at the local church we partner with. And then from there, we do a quick check-in and we go out and pick up trash in the community, work on community gardens, maybe do an art mural, stuff like that.
Dope.
So then now they're getting paid, but they're seeing themselves as being the solution to the problems in the community.
Yeah.
So I've heard so many students who say, I used to litter until I worked Hood Heroes, right? Now I ain't littering because I ain't going to pick it up. So the youngest students, 11 through 15, they just work Saturdays. They'll make $350 over 6 weeks, right? Nice pocket change for a 12, 13-year-old kid, right?
Yeah.
But then 16 through 19-year-olds, we call them our leaders in training, our LITs.
Yeah.
They work
lit.
They work 3 extra days. We meet downtown. We do leadership development with them. We bring in people talking about financial literacy, talk through conflict management, resolution, all that kind of stuff. And then we break them up in groups. We have our college-age students. We call them our Kaleo leaders. And they lead the students now, the high school students, to visit different careers and businesses around the city. So they'll visit a coffee shop and learn how this person had the vision to open up a coffee shop and what it takes.
Really
They'll visit a law firm. They'll visit an architecture firm. And it's just about exposure, right?
Yeah.
And them seeing what they could be and who they could become.
That's dope. I love that.
We have a housing program as well, J29 Homes, based off of Jeremiah 29, where we fix abandoned buildings in the community, which are a blight to the community, and then we sell them to families from the community below market value. So all that.
Do you get funding for that? Is that a grant funded program, or do you raise money for that?
We raise money. We get some grant money for different programs we do. Yeah, if anyone's listening, got, a couple mil, or, even a couple dollars, we'll take it.
We could put we could put information in the show notes.
Yeah.
So like, legit,
LegacyDisciple.org. We would love to talk to anybody about that stuff.
LegacyDisciple.org.
Yeah.
I love that. That's good.
But then, for the conference, coming back to the conferences, we would still have people who would hit us up and be like, "Yo, when's the conference coming back? When's the conference coming back?" And we just didn't see anything coming and filling in the gap. And now with more and more social media influencers, which there are some good ones and some not so good ones, right? It's like,
as is always the case.
Okay, let's maybe we could
tears,
come back and be a part of helping to steer people in the right direction.
Yeah.
So one of the guys who started coming to the Legacy Conference from Miami when he was 17 years old, Jeff Garcia, who goes by a hip hop name Shepherd, he's taken over the conference now, so he's the conference director, and doing a great job with it. So, but now we're just doing the regional model.
Yeah.
So 5 cities this year, including Phoenix,
LA,
Miami, Chicago, and Houston.
That's good.
When is it when is it in Phoenix? I mean, we're in Phoenix. We have to at least.
Phoenix is December 5th.
December 5th.
First Saturday.
Make sure y'all pull up.
So it's a 1-day conference. There'll be a pre-conference as well the day before. My Boulevard is putting that on, and it's really talking about finding your kind of ministry shape and how, whatever you do, you could find some way to minister, right? Yeah. So 1-day conference, 2 general sessions. Preston Perry will be the headliner here in Phoenix.
Oh, let's go.
We have Eric Mason in Chicago. We have Jackie, I think, in LA. So we got some good speakers. Amin and KB are doing a podcast in Houston, I believe.
Nice. Quick story about Legacy.
Yes.
I told you in the beginning of the show that I was going to come back and talk to you about the Legacy thing. So
I'm a little scared, but go ahead.
No, it's all positive. I just wanted to say there was a couple of guys that was big on discipleship. This holistic aspect, this, the phrase that we used to use was be called life on life.
Yeah.
That was the phrase. I don't know if people still use that today, but back then,
not as much, but yeah,
life on life. And so I remember going to the Legacy LA, and it was me and my boy. We drove out from Phoenix, got in the car, and I remember, man, going and like that family reunion feel that you said, it was like completely that. But it was also these young people, hip hop, a lot of them was hip hop heads, and just, they wore Jordans, and it was just like, oh man, these are people that
these are my people.
Like my people, they're in the culture and stuff, but like they love Jesus, and they are on fire for discipleship. And I remember hearing a sermon, one of the preachers that was brought out on community, and it was from Hebrews 10. I never forget it, because me and my boy was on the front listening, and it was just like, man,
not forsaking the gathering of yourself together.
Yeah, that, and and it was just like, and then there was some other people that was there. I think it was D.A. Horton spoke, if I'm not mistaken.
D.A. Shout out to D.A.
Brian Laritz. Matter of fact, I think it was Brian Laritz who actually preached that sermon. So anyways, that moment was when I was like, yo, this Legacy thing is dope. On the way back home, me and my boy, we talked about it. And so anyway, I just want to say that God was moving and doing stuff through Legacy. And I know you know that. I just want to just kind of affirm the vision that you really had that was poured into you in this whole Legacy thing. I really believe God used Legacy, that conference, in a mighty way. So I just want to just say that.
I think the young people call that flowers.
Flowers. Give me your flowers, man. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Since I'm an OG and I'm going to die any day now. Thank you.
Yeah.
We didn't ask the question, why did you call it Legacy?
Yeah, so good question. So we were brainstorming this conference post kind of the pre-conference thing, 50, 60 people. Mm-hmm. And I remember calling Lecrae up and be like, hey, we need... help me with a name for this conference. And
All right, shout out Lecrae.
yeah,
Shout out.
and he's actually the one who said, you know what we're trying to do is leave a legacy. And it was like, what better name than that, right? Legacy Conference.
That's it.
Bang
So
bang.
that stuck right away.
So here's the follow up. You talk about pulling together youth workers. You talked about churches tend to have great programs for kids, and then naturally most of the programming in general is for older people. It's called a 35 plus, right?
Yeah.
Once you start a family and you're kind of wanting to settle down, but that mid range or that center portion where you're the youngest, the most vibrant, have the most energy, you can't sit still,
Yeah.
probably willing to do almost anything, which is probably the ripest place for ministry and work and like representation and all of that. That's missing. What are churches missing that they're not seeing
Good question.
that as like the biggest opportunity,
Yeah.
and sort of shifting programming to like see that clear, to see that as the opportunity and seeing that as the means of then spreading
Yeah.
back to the margins in a sense, right?
Yeah.
It seems like they're
Yeah.
focusing on the outside of the bell curve
Yeah.
where like the most opportunity is right in the center, and we tend
Yeah.
to miss that. Why is
Yeah.
that, you think?
There could be so many thoughts on that. Well, one is young people don't tithe well, right? They're starting their career, they're working at Starbucks, they're,
Mhm.
paying college loans off, whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
So, for a church, you got to pay the bills, right? And so, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, right? They're going to be more generous in their
Mhm.
giving.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you do young kids stuff because you need the 40s who have the kids to come, right? And so it's more so I think done for the parents than the kids. Probably.
So ministry in
right?
large part is functional.
I think it's functional, right?
Mm.
And then also, in Western culture, and I don't think this was the intention of the church. The church met in homes and met around meal tables, right?
Yep.
It met in community.
Mhm.
In our Western culture, which we've kind of sent throughout the world, right, in many ways, is very focused on a gifted orator,
Yeah.
a gifted preacher. And I think I believe in biblical preaching. I believe in all that, but I think rather than it having like a slice of the pie, it's
Yeah.
taking the whole pie.
Mm.
And so when
good.
you have young people who you said already have a lot of energy, to sit and just hear from a preacher or a teacher is not like at the top of their list, right?
And it
It's
feels like what they just did the last 5 days of the
yeah,
week.
yeah. They do that in school already, right? And so, when do people join the military, right? Out of
Yep.
high school, 18,
Yep.
19 years
Yep.
old, right?
Yep.
And they're running drills
Yep.
and they're getting in shape and,
Active,
they're
purpose,
active, right?
mission. Yep.
Yeah. Man, I think the church needs to figure out, again, we don't need to get rid of, the good stuff that we do have,
Mm.
but how do we supplement it
Yeah.
with other stuff,
good.
right? And I would even add the justice portion of things. I'm an OG. I'll go with that title that you gave me. Cal. I just turned 49. I remember growing up where if I knew what was going on in the world, it was because I happened to watch the 10 o'clock news,
Yeah.
or happened to see the newspaper in the machine, kind of as I
Yeah.
was walking past it, right?
Mm.
Young people today know everything that's happening around the
Everything.
world, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They know what's going on
Yeah.
in Palestine and Israel. They know what's going on
Yeah.
in Russia and Ukraine. They know what's going on. I mean, in
And have
Venezuela,
opinions.
and they have opinions, right?
That's right.
And to come to a church that doesn't have the answer,
Or don't even talk about
that
it.
doesn't even talk about
Yeah.
it, right? Like if the
Yeah.
church is supposed to be the place where I come for answers and direction,
Yeah.
and I have all these thoughts going on in my head throughout the week, and it's not addressed on the one
Mm.
time my church gets together,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, again, as a young person, I want to at least pretend like I'm doing something, like I care, right? Not that young people are creating all the solutions and stuff.
Right, right.
It's like, sometimes,
But give me a place to point this energy.
yeah, give me somewhere to direct it,
Yeah.
right? And
That's good.
in the civil rights movement, right, the Black church specifically led the charge in that.
That's right. That's right.
But today you wonder, okay, where is the church?
Yeah.
Man.
I think one of the things too, you mentioned the justice piece and the justice aspect. A lot of the young people that I have talked to specifically when stuff is going on in society, stuff going on in the world, the conversation about what does the church, yeah, we can say like, what does the church do? But like, even the idea of just like, hey, so what does the church think about this? This idea of like, even some of the things that you already mentioned. And I've also heard too how some churches don't talk about it, shy away from it, explain it away, or whatever the case. And that has grown for some young people. Say, well, I don't need the church then. I'm not going to go to church then, and I'm going to go elsewhere, or I'm going to go, and then this is where we get into. I'm going to go to the Nation of Islam and Black Hebrew Israelites, and they go to other places and others, ideologies, religious ideologies, where at least they're talking about it. Maybe they have some answers or some solutions, but at least where they're talking about it. So I just think that having a space where justice, faith and justice, and culture can be talked about, I think that's important, specifically in this idea of discipling the next generation.
Yeah. And you see Jesus, right, modeled his life after what God has always commanded throughout the Old Testament: care for the poor, the widow, the outcast, right?
Yeah.
The people that the society tends to put at the bottom are elevated in the kingdom, right? Are given a place, right? And America as a nation, it's the opposite of that, right? It's about elevating the most powerful, the wealthiest, right? They're the ones who we put at the table. They're the ones who have the voice. They're the ones who create laws and everything, right? And unfortunately, I think American culture has co-opted much of what we call Christianity in America. And where, again, God's heart has always been for the poor, for those on the margin of society. The foreigner, right?
Yeah.
But those are the issues. Don't talk about those, things. Those are considered to be woke or whatever label people have this year. Because next year there'll be another label,
Right.
And it's sad for me to see that, right? Because again, it's the empire and the kingdom of God are polar opposites, right? And I think kingdom is more run by the powers of the earth, Satan, his demons, right? Who say, hey, look at the kingdoms of this world, they could be yours. Right? Cast yourself down from the temple, let them see your power and your might, right? Turn the stone into bread, right? Provide for yourself, right? Like, that is what Satan has always done. And empires from Roman Empire, Egyptian Empire, Babylonian Empire to American Empire, British Empire, right? Have all bit into that fruit, that forbidden fruit. And that label Christian nationalism, where whether someone claims that title or not, I think many of our churches are marked with that. Where again, American Empire has overcome the gospel witness of the church.
Like, we've forgotten of whom we're actually citizens of.
Yeah.
You know, almost like we've misplaced our allegiance.
Yeah.
Right. We've made a profession, but then forgot.
Yeah.
You know, so like, oh no, we're citizens of a different kingdom.
Yeah.
And then we're here almost as exiles and representatives. But instead, that language has almost been distorted for different means.
Yeah.
And then we've just bought it hook, line, and
Yeah.
sinker.
Yeah.
Where have you seen, and maybe even like with whom, almost from like a more hopeful perspective, where do you see things like going well?
Yeah. There's always a remnant, right?
Always.
And
Yeah.
God always has his people. And so I want to be careful not to start naming churches and individuals, because then people will be like, well, you didn't mention my name, my
Of
church,
course,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
so forth. But
Oh man.
my encouragement is, you know, we should all live out what we desire our churches to live out, right? There is no perfect church
Of
that gets
course.
it all right,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, but as a member of the body of Christ, as a member of a local church, I want to make sure that I'm continuously growing in what God has called me to do, right? And so, what does it look like for me? You know, to care for the poor. What does it look like for me to practice hospitality? I mean, that in and of itself, if the church would just practice hospitality, that would have a huge difference, right? And hospitality really is just it's two Greek words, right? Stranger and friend. So it's the idea of making your stranger a friend. We think of hospitality as having our friends over.
Yep.
That's not hospitality.
Biblically,
That's,
nope.
That's having your friends over.
Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome
You know?
the stranger. That's
yeah,
what we,
it's
yep.
welcome the stranger,
Yeah,
right?
That's good.
The person who has no meal, right? Maybe the
Mhm.
person who has no safe place to sleep, right? Welcoming someone in from the cold or whatever the case might be, and
You're in Chicago, so you got the cold.
yeah, cold. Well, here it'll be extreme heat because you guys are like hell is like right next door, you know.
Yeah, you
in
ain't,
the
you ain't
summer.
lying, bro. People talking about dry heat, whatever. I'm like, yo, open your oven next time you preheat it to 425.
Yeah.
And when you get that whoosh of heat in your face, that is Phoenix in the summer. So
That's true.
if
Yeah,
you
that's
feel
fair.
like if you're okay with that kind of heat,
Yeah.
come see us. But right now, though,
right now,
it's nice. So you know,
Yeah.
come talk to us.
You know, and I'm from Chicago, born and raised, and you know, I'm gonna say, you know, I think Chicago's the best city. But Chicago has like and again, I'm most familiar with churches and ministry in Chicago, right?
Sure.
But Chicago's like the birthplace of so much like that has happened throughout this country, from community organizing work to labor unions starting in Chicago, right? And so, you know, there's so many churches that I'm aware of in Chicago that are doing so much around the immigrant situation right now. And not even like without even getting into the politics, because I think we could all debate politics on
Sure.
immigration and how many immigrants and how the process goes and so forth.
Yeah,
But the fact that we treat people inhumanely,
precisely.
Come on.
Treatment.
the fact that you could take people's legal status away and then call them illegal, right? Like there's something wrong with that,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Precisely.
Speak on that. Speak on that.
And so seeing churches who are galvanizing lawyers to stand on their behalf,
Man.
to fight in the court
Right.
of laws,
That's good.
to help people who can't go to work because they feel like they're gonna get picked up, to cover their groceries, right? To take their kids to school, back and forth to school. I mean, there's so many churches doing amazing work,
That's great.
mentoring young students, providing job opportunities. And that's, you know, again, church just we have to go beyond 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever time our Sunday service is, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to go outside the four walls. We have to be engaged in the community. We have our buildings need to be open and safe spaces during the week. Like we have so much assets. We have people. We have financial resources. We have building space.
Yeah.
We have the gospel.
Yeah.
And you know, if we just understood that the gospel is more than just some mental agreement that Jesus died for your sins, you know.
Like
So
a contract almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say this last thing, because I know we're running short on time, but I always use the example like in Genesis when the fall happens, right? Adam and Eve eat from the forbidden fruit.
Mhm.
We don't just see Adam and Eve separated from God. We see work becomes hard.
Mhm.
We see child labor becomes painful.
Yep.
We see brother kills brother, and we eventually see nation war against nation, right? Like sin has affected every area of society,
Every area.
every area.
Yeah.
But as Christians, it almost seems like we just isolated to like sin only corrupted our spiritual state with God,
Right.
you know,
Right.
as though it doesn't affect everything else.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
And so if we believe that sin has creeped into every area of society, which every Christian would agree with that, but we don't believe that the gospel addresses every area of the brokenness.
It's a little inconsistent.
What kind of gospel is that?
Come
Help
on.
me.
Come
What
on.
kind of good news is that?
Make it make sense.
Yes.
I mean, maybe it's lower G, lower N, good news. It's not capital G, capital N, good news.
It's missing something.
It's missing something. I mean, and Jesus, you know, when he started his ministry, he read from Isaiah 61.
61. Yep.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's
upon
anointed
me.
me to bring the good news to the poor,
Four. Yeah.
to set the captives free, right?
Right.
To declare the year of Jubilee.
Come on.
Like
Come on.
the year of Jubilee. Like
Mhm.
let's talk about debt
Debts.
reduction,
Yes.
elimination,
Yes.
right? Which the people of God never obey that, right? Every 49 years, right? They were supposed to
That's right.
forgive that.
Eliminate.
Never happened.
Wow.
And because again, the empire, the ways of this world outweigh the commands of God to us. And but what does it look like for a church to say, you know what, we're gonna practice the year of Jubilee. We're gonna help people get out of debt. We're gonna help people build up generational wealth, right?
Could you imagine the creative like the creative work to just brainstorm and say, hey, why don't we pull all our financiers together? Why don't we pull our bankers? Why don't we pull our, you know, VCs and people who work in finance industry and say, hey, how would we make this work? It like there is no politics. You have to talk about that. It's just how could we make this work? What could we do? What could be the plan? What could be the process? How do we market this? How do we find the people? How do we do that sort of thing? Like that would be, you know, the kind of work to get that done.
That's good.
That's the thing that I think young people get active behind.
Brian, this was dope, man. We gotta have you come back to Phoenix, bro.
Yeah, I'll be back, man.
I mean, Legacy is December 5th.
Well, we should have him come back in July. See how
No.
see how he feels about
I'm
that.
gonna stay away from the pit of hell. Just like I would never invite you guys to Chicago in January, February. You know?
That's fair, man. That's fair. Any other thing that you want to share before we kind of close up? You know, you got the conference we talked about December 5th. Any other your social media handles?
If people are looking for more information, legacydisciple.org.
Okay.
I don't want to draw away from your podcast, but we also started a podcast. People could find information there.
I mean,
No collaboration,
no
man.
competition.
collaboration,
No
right?
competition.
We support one
Yeah,
another.
yeah.
We're creating what we're calling Legacy University, which will be online courses. I don't wanna,
Okay.
you know, kind of think of like JUCO for Bible school, you know?
Okay.
And we have conferences again in 5 cities this year. We have the programs I mentioned in Chicago that go around year round. So yeah, love to stay in touch, follow up with anybody who might have questions.
Absolutely, bro. Brian, thank you, man. You're a legend. We're gonna call you a legend, even if you don't want to take the title.
I think legend is
I think
fair.
that's fitting for you, brother.
I think legend is fair.
I think it's fitting for you, brother. But appreciate the conversation. For those that have been listening to the podcast, like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know what legacy you want to leave. A legacy that you want to leave for your family, for you, for your church, whatever it is, your business. What is the legacy you want to leave? And like we always say, love God, love people. We are out.